Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to the House of Demi, the latest entry in the Houselights series here on the Nerd Party Network. Actually, no, wait. We've decided to put our series for Demi in the 90s on hold and sidestep our viewing queue to focus on a specific character in cinema, that of Hannibal Lecter, which was just witnessed in the 1991 Silence of the Lambs. This week, we'll be following the character to Ridley Scott's 2001 Hannibal. I'm Darren Moser, and I'm joined again by my friends, the Italian inspector, Tristan Riddell, and the eccentric billionaire, John Mills. Gentlemen, it's time for something new here on Houselights as we talk about Hannibal. And you're fronting the bill for this, John. I'm just letting you know.
Look, given the character that is the billionaire in
I
this
just
film,
said you were a billionaire. That's all I said.
Listen, given the inspiration here, this is one of the few times I'll say, like, I don't want to be the billionaire. Okay, could I just
Why
be
don't
a
you want to
different
be
character?
the billionaire?
In this case, I don't really want to be the billionaire. Okay,
I thought you were going to find. I thought you were going to see it as an affront that I was chosen by Darren to be the Italian character.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. Given what happens, by all means,
That's true.
please.
Technically, both of you die, so it's. Okay,
honestly,
what if you can be Barney? Okay, whoever wants to be Barney can be
I'm
Barney.
I'm Barney. I'll be Barney.
And Tristan, you'll be the recast Starling. So
It works. It works.
We'll go.
I can see this happening.
I can do that. I feel like I can do it.
Yeah,
I think you could pull
works
off that dress for sure.
Oh no,
absolutely.
no, there's no question on that. We'd have to train him up for the gunfight, though. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one thing.
No,
Yeah.
John's right. I mean, like immediately, like I have like the shape of my chest hair would work perfectly.
And if you haven't seen Tristan's chest hair, it's magnificent, magnificent.
Molto bello.
Going with Hannibal, and this was a great idea that came from just watching Silence of the Lambs last week, and I had not seen Hannibal, and we'll start right there with our one of our first questions. Usually, was this the first time for either of you watching Hannibal, or did you catch it beforehand? John, give me your answer.
No, I saw it in the movie theater. Naturally,
The one that was really far away and really hard to get to.
yeah, no, yeah, right next to the farmhouse. I mean, how did that guy did not have like numerous ethics investigations? It's like, how does he afford this place? But I saw it in the movie theater. Everybody was jazzed about Hannibal coming out. I mean, anybody who had seen the Silence
You want to
of
talk
the
about
Lambs,
anticipation? It sounds like this was the movie.
yeah, I was like, oh wow, Ridley Scott's doing it. Okay, I'm a little dodgy about replacing Jodi Foster, but hey, Anthony Hopkins came back. That's market quality stuff right there with those two names, sure. And so I saw it in the movie theater, and I've seen it a few times since, and we'll talk about it here. What about you, Tristan? When did you wind up seeing this for the first time?
I didn't see it in the theater. I'm surprised that I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I think I was so chagrined that that Foster wasn't returning. I think I kind of just like wrote it off in my brain for a long time.
You got on AOL and were like, type.
I got on the forums and just rage quit. No, I even though I loved Ridley
Not
Scott
my Starling.
and hashtag and loved Anthony Hopkins, I was just like, nope, out, done. But I also love Julianne Moore. I don't know what I was thinking. It's just I was bitter that it wasn't the original cast, but it was a blockbuster rental. That's how I watched it, and I had no idea it was Gary Oldman. I just want to throw that out there. Like when I watched,
I don't think many people
no
didn't.
idea.
He went uncredited, and I think for an interesting reasons. But yeah, I don't think I know now going in that it was him going into watching this the first time. But yeah, it would be hard to tell because it's a lot of prosthetics.
Yeah, there was when I was watching it this time in preparation for the podcast, there was one scene in particular where I was like, okay, that is Oldman's voice. Like you can really tell that that's Oldman behind the mask just because of his voice. And I think it was when he was on the phone with Ray Liotta
Mhm.
for the first time. I think that's when you could really hear his voice come out.
Yes. I think that, I mean, obviously, when you get to the flashback, there's no question that it's Gary Oldman playing in the flashback. But
it's kind of obscured and surreal.
yeah, they did all the funny stuff with the you know the way that it was cut together, and the way that he moved, and the way that the way that they shot it and everything. It's interesting because does it really add anything to the performance? I think, yeah, it kind of does. Because if you're sitting there looking for a name actor behind the makeup,
Right.
then you're spending all of your time looking for the actor behind the makeup instead of just appreciating the character. And I think, if there's anything that elevates this experience, it's that you can't spend the time looking for Oldman that first time through.
No, you can't.
You have to
just
obviously
be
it
sucked in
doesn't
by the performance.
Yeah, it's and it is a terrific performance. Like, he's a horrifying person, not because of how he looks, but because of who he is. And that's sort of the interesting thing, is because I think that's just the nature of the film. Like, nobody's a good guy.
Yeah. It kind of asks you, who's more of a monster, him or Hannibal? And you're kind of like, I don't know. I don't like getting asked these questions. I don't want to have to think about that.
Well, he's even worse in the book. Verger's history in the book is, it's even worse. And there's like a whole lot that was cut from the book for the film. I mean, obviously, because it has to. And truth be told, a lot of the cuts for the film are pretty wise and judicious. It's almost like the novel The Godfather, like, cuts a lot of the Johnny Fontaine stuff that was in there and the Luca Brasi backstory, and they decided to cut the flashbacks, which gave them half of the second film and stuff like that. So a lot of the cuts were pretty solid, but I don't know. I don't know. I'd love to know from you. Like, have you read the book? Have either of you read the book?
No,
I haven't
read the book.
No, okay.
I know about the ending, but
the ending's very different.
Yeah, I know the ending difference. Well, this was my first time watching the entire film, but I believe I had seen some of the key moments in, like, one of those YouTube videos. It's like top moments from whatever, so I had knew. I didn't know in context where they were in the film, but I had known a couple of the scenes, like the dinner scene at the end and the hanging scene. But that didn't, I don't feel that detracted anything from just the tension, because so much of this movie is like, when you're heading on a course towards Hannibal, or you're in the same room as him, you're just like holding your breath because he is so dangerous. And you're just taking your life in your own hands, and often losing it because you weren't smart. But yeah, so this was the first time that I had seen the whole film. And I didn't really know what to expect, except for he's been away, he's coming back. I thought it was kind of an interesting take to have Clarice kind of be discredited, and like, I mean, yeah, it's been 10 years, but I don't know. That was an interesting direction to go, that she's not this FBI darling anymore. And she's kind of almost, a hair. I mean, she gets suspended and all of that. And there's a lot more politicalness going on in the FBI. Whereas in Silence of the Lambs, it felt more clean cut. And maybe that's the difference between a 90s movie and a thousands movie, but, or a book that was probably in the 80s. So maybe that's a bit of the different flavor.
Well, I think that there's definitely a more, I hesitate to put it this way, but a more realistic look at bureaucracy and its manipulative triggers in this movie. There's more of the procedural that shaped the adaptation Manhunter. There's much more of that police procedural stuff sort of woven into this. And I think that what's interesting about it, rather, is that Starling seems to be operating as a field agent in this film. And it's like, you would think that her career trajectory would have been markedly different, And there's some implication that Krendler has had something to do with where she's wound up, but it's never, I don't think that it is expressed directly enough in the film to sit there and say, oh, well, she's sort of been railroaded because Krendler's made moves on her and she won't ever respond to him. And so he's made sure that she stayed where she is as opposed to rising through the ranks as you would imagine she would after a big celebrated case prior to this, 10 years prior.
True. Well, what do you think, Tristan? What did you think of, we'll just talk about Clarice. What did you think of Julianne Moore coming in to take on this role that I don't know about in the 90s, but I'm sure there were a lot of people that were saying or thinking at least of like, how can you have Clarice without, Jodie Foster?
Yeah, it was really hard for me to see Clarice in this. Like they kept calling her Starling, but it was so hard for me to see that character. And, if there's such a large time jump, obviously, that
she changed her hair color, a lot happened.
Well, like you can argue that, like, yeah, 10 years went by. She went through a lot of crap. She, like upped the kill count way more than she should have. And so she's become some would say obsessed with Lecter, so like, yeah, it's going to change her. It's going to change her drastically. We all change over the course of 10 years, but I just never once saw Starling in all of that. And, it's really hard because in Silence of the Lambs, Jodie Foster is playing someone who hasn't even graduated yet. She's young.
Yeah, she's
I don't want to say she's a trainee. I don't want to say naive because I don't think she was ever naive. But she was forthright. She dealt with a lot of sexism, and
I would say she's naive to the politics, but that's just from being new. Not to her discredit, but
inexperienced.
Like, she didn't know how to play the game yet.
With going from that Starling to a Starling who's 10 years in experienced, killed a lot of people, been through the ringer, and, been out of her hometown for a long time, like losing her accent. It just, the only connection is with Hannibal. That Hannibal has with Starling. And I feel like you could have had, like, I'm not trying to say that this should have happened. So don't misunderstand me here, but it would have been easy to put in somebody else in this script as chasing Hannibal. And it's just a new obsession from Hannibal. Like it doesn't, they don't have to have that Silence of the Lambs connection since so many years have gone by. And, and
still a female, still young, still like Hannibal's kind of got a type or whatever, but it's, you don't have all the baggage of this is supposed to be the same person,
right? And again, I'm not saying it would have been better that way. I'm just like, if they wanted to do that, they could have.
There's precedent for it too, because the idea of Lecter basically blowing somebody's spirit out out there, like making their soul leave their body in a sense, is established very much so with Will Graham in the first
You're
book.
different after you interact with him.
And Graham's never the same after he's interacted with Lecter. And there's a huge reticence on his part to go and see Lecter in the book, where he's like, I don't want to see this guy. He takes me to a place I don't want to be. So you could very easily, Tristan, I think you're absolutely right. I think both the book and the film would have benefited from somebody saying, why isn't Starling doing this? And somebody saying, she doesn't want to go anywhere near this. Like she's...
Name drop, but she's just not the lead.
Right. And you can imagine Starling as being off somewhere where she is in such a lockdown house because she knows there's always the possibility that Lecter suddenly gets interested in her again. And so like she lives in a fortress in the middle of somewhere working remote because she's like, no, I'm not even taking the risk. And this person,
kind of like Sidney Prescott.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. So I definitely think you're on to that, because that would have been,
it could have worked
more logical,
but I don't know how tied people are to that character. I mean, you have 50% of it there. You have, Anthony Hopkins. I mean, if you had removed both of them, I think it's much harder sell to. I think the movie would have died before.
Oh, absolutely,
Inception.
because like think of it this way, like you don't have Jonathan Demme, you don't have Jodie Foster. If you didn't have Hannibal Lecter, I don't think the movie would have gotten made.
No,
Like I think some exec would have been like, no, we can use the IP, and people would be like, why would they want to do this? Why would I want to do that? Like, what director would want to do that?
What I find interesting is nowadays it seems there are a lot of top line actors and actresses where they're like, I will not come back unless you bring that person that I worked with before. Period.
Right.
I'm not doing it.
Keaton and Burton.
I'm surprised in a sense that Hopkins didn't draw that line and say, no, she's got to come back. Fix it however you have to fix it, but have her come back.
Well, I was reading in Wikipedia and other sources that, Hopkins was asking his agent, like, hey, do I have any pull in casting? And they're like, you don't, but you can give your advice. And I think his advice and championing of Julianne Moore is probably what helped win her the role once it was clear that, it wasn't going to be, the original actress. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where yes, 10 years later, I don't know how much clout the name Anthony Hopkins had in 2000.
A lot.
It probably, I'm sure it had some, but I don't know.
I think that what's interesting, and I think what we're sort of like dancing around here, is there are so many elements that they did get to put it together, but reading up on the production history of this, it really seems like they moved too quickly to put it together, because I think it shot in, what was it, May of 2000, and it came out in like February. When did it come out? But basically, like the turnaround,
February 9th of 01.
Yeah, of 01.
Less than a year.
Yeah, and
That's
they started
really
shooting
fast.
in May of 2000. I was like, and they weren't happy with the first draft of the script. I'm like, this doesn't.
They
this
went
doesn't-
through 15 drafts of the script.
Yeah,
See, this is the kind of movie you need to have the script locked down before you start. Otherwise, you're going to be like, well, I guess we don't really need that entire FBI sting situation that we spent half our budget on. Like,
Right?
that's terrible.
Right?
I'm
And
not saying
then,
we didn't need that scene. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, that could happen.
Oh no, we didn't
'Cause-
need that scene.
Because Jodie Foster was involved with the rewrites up until the 14th version.
And then she was like,
And-
no.
And she just bowed out. She's like, I can't do this anymore. And she gave a pretty damning public statement about it, because she hated the ending so terribly that she's like, I can't do this. I'm out.
Now,
And
was that
then
the ending that we got or the ending that was on the script?
The ending that was on the script, because when Ridley Scott came in, he's like, this is a horrible ending. We're not going to do this. And
Right.
so they could have kept Jodie Foster, but then
Yes.
they already moved on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's just how it goes sometimes. But
Now,
Well,
speaking of which, I want to talk about, again, we always give these lists with a huge grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
But this could be one of the longest lists I've ever seen. And I'm going to read this to you now. This could be every single actress that has ever acted. And I'm reading this off of IMDb. When Jodie Foster declined to reprise the role of Clarice Starling, Julianne Moore beat Gillian Anderson, Jennifer Aniston, Christina Applegate, Drew Barrymore, Kate Beckinsale, Kate Blanchett, Sandra Bullock, Jennifer Connelly, Kristen Davis, Cameron Diaz, Shannon Doherty, Julie Louise-Dreyfus, Nicole Eggert, Callista Flockhart, Bridget Fonda, Terry Hatcher, Helen Hunt, Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Lucy Liu, Heather Locklear, Alyssa Milano, Gwyneth Paltrow, Sarah Jessica Parker, Megan Ryan, Winona Ryder, Brooke Shields, Hilary Swank, and Denise Richards. And it follows, Anderson fell out of the running early on when it was discovered her contract to the X-Files prohibited her from playing another FBI agent. Why would she even want to do that? Davidson Parker turned down the part due to their contracts to Sex and the City. Flockhart declined due to her contract to Ally McBeal. So those are really the only ones that I believe is Anderson, Davis, Parker, and McBeal, and Flockhart, because they actually had reasons not to do it.
And the actual funny thing about that is that Anderson later appeared in the Hannibal TV series created by Brian Fuller as a psychiatrist romantically linked with Hannibal Lecter, which, hey, she got into the franchise eventually, I guess.
That is quite a list.
So
though.
that counts for something.
That's literally every leading
I
lady.
think Claire
who
Danes is the only actress like around that time that was viable that isn't mentioned on that list. Like, or Catherine, right. Maybe Catherine Zeta-Jones was too busy with Entrapment. Is that around the right time period?
Entrapment was 99 because that was about the millennium.
Oh well, there you go. There you go. Well, I think we can all agree. You can't have the film without Hopkins. Period. Full stop. Period. You need him. I would argue you can't. Once Foster was lost, if I were in the seat of power and the executive producer, I'm De Laurentiis or something, I would just look at everybody and say, look, either you get her back, you find a way to get her back, let her rewrite everything and get her back.
Honestly,
or no.
Like I'm surprised she didn't have that. I mean, like you said, she's involved in the scripting, but she kind of had the power. Like, why not? Would you not make bullet point number 1 on the whiteboard? Make sure that she stays in this project, whatever it takes,
Right.
Yes. That it's so,
I mean,
absolutely.
Not that the movie didn't make money. I mean, it was very successful, but.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like, we're all arguing about Foster not being involved, and yet it made money. It made good money.
Yeah. It made $351 million on an $87 million budget, plus movie rentals.
True. But is that just hunger for seeing Hannibal Lecter in action? Is it?
Oh, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying we're just all agreeing it's not like the film was a flop because of it, and like Jodi Foster would have fixed that.
Oh, no, for sure. I think it's a success because Anthony Hopkins comes back. That gets people in the theater. They want to see Hannibal Lecter doing bad things instead of being trapped in a cell. It's our first chance to see him out in the wild. How did he operate? How did he kill? How did he do these sorts of things? It's that lurid, very attractive sort of thing going on there. But is it successful as a work of art? That's where we get into the territory of Foster coming back, of story structure. Because if this is based on 15 drafts, watching it this time, I can look at this movie and say, honestly, there are a couple of things that should have been cut out at the story stage. There are certain things that should have been juggled so as to introduce certain characters differently or later on in the story. Like I wouldn't have opened with Barney giving the mask. That's a big tease for the audience sort of thing. I wouldn't have gone in with that. I would have had him hand everything over to Starling and say, this is it. Okay, fine. I got rid of everything.
And then the next scene is him having to save the mask and giving it to him.
And asking for $250,000
because he knows he lost all his other cash items.
And so the scene makes more sense there because we see him living in not the greatest neighborhood.
Yeah, that is true.
So you see him making his play.
Or he's that smart to not to live under the radar. But I mean, granted, you're totally right. Like it does have more of a I haven't come into money yet vibe, but also I get a feeling that Barney's smart enough to not be like, and then I bought a Bentley, and people are wondering why an orderly has that. Yeah,
Superman 4.
Yeah, the Cadillac's in his mother's name. Then no, go return it now.
So okay. I think I not to harp on this, but so in the end of the novel, I want to just break this out. Yep. So so in the end of the movie, if you're listening to this, hopefully you've seen the movie and you know how it ends, where Hannibal eats Leota's brain, and he actually just serves Leota's brain. We don't actually see him.
That scene is amazing.
And Julianne Moore is tied up and drugged, and the FBI are coming, and then at the last minute she handcuffs him to herself, and he chops off his hand and runs away. So that's the end of the movie, essentially.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In the book, somehow
Palpatine returned.
Yeah.
Starling and Hannibal dine on Ray Liotta's character's brains together. Correct. And then confess love for each other, have sex, and run off into the sunset.
See,
And
I
then
cannot buy
Barney
that
finds
at
them.
all. That makes no sense.
This is where the film doesn't do a good enough job expressing exactly how frustrated Starling is, and the fact that she's been railroaded and manipulated by people like Krendler through her history, and Crawford hasn't been able to really protect her or help her the way that she thought he would. And you have other characters that are cut from the movie for very fine reasons, but Barney is much more involved in the novel. Mason Verger's sister is in the novel, and she is involved in the ending, helping Starling escape.
That's right.
You can go on Wikipedia. If you can either read the book or you can go on Wikipedia and read about what she does to Mason Verger at Hannibal's suggestion, because she wants to ensure that it's trust me, you're better off just reading it for yourself. I don't even want to repeat it, but it actually ends with them having run off and Barney sitting in an opera in Buenos Aires, living off of his money from Verger. And he sees Lecter and Starling in an opera box, and Lecter turns and looks at him, and he's like, I'm out, I'm going. And he just leaves because he knows that Lecter won't kill him, but he's like, I don't want to be around the guy. I'm out.
This has
I'm good.
End of the Dark Knight trilogy vibes. Like,
right. Boom, 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 boom.
So, all right, with all that in mind, if they wanted to tease an ending like that, tease it. I think Foster would have been able to pull off the obsession and the consideration, but then ultimately deny Lecter. But in the version that we got, that Julianne Moore's performance and the way that they ramped it up would not have been believable in any way, shape, or form if that question was even posed to her. Because they didn't sell obsession. They didn't sell this kind of give and take back and forth between the two of them. It was barely even cat and mouse.
Yeah, I mean, if she had gone back to her office and she has some secret like Lecter spiderweb board on the wall or something, but no, it's felt like she hadn't. Yes, she says to Barney, I've thought of him every day for 30 seconds at least, but it sounds like she's kind of moved past it. She's not even thinking about it. And then this was the day it all came back and she was drawn back into Hannibal's web. That's what this movie pitches it as.
Yeah, they didn't sell the obsession whatsoever. And it wasn't there. And some people think that Harris's novel ended like that because De Laurentiis wanted him to write more novels and he didn't want to. And so he kind of abruptly wrote them as riding off.
And then they ran up in the sunset at the end. Bye.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they fought each other and fell off the falls, never to be seen again. And I got to write another book now.
Yeah, I mean the thing, which of course he does wind up writing another book anyway. But it's interesting because the book and the film are very, very similar in the sense that they're not terribly satisfying in terms of where the characters go. And they're not, the novel goes in a lot of places. So I give the film a lot of credit for distilling and narrowing the focus. But it does so, I think, at the absolute cost of spending enough time with Starling in a meaningful way.
I mean,
and
I would
that's
almost
the character
say,
that gets short shrift.
Verger is almost more of a main character than Starling. He has more impact on the direction of the plot. Starling's a little more along for the ride. It's more of the cat and mouse game between Verger and Lecter.
Yes.
Which is great. I mean, it's a very interesting story, but it is not the duo that Silence of the Lambs was.
So speaking of Lecter and duos and everything like that, bringing this back to the director's role, we've seen Demme portray Lecter. We've seen Scott portray Lecter. And we just got a whole bunch of Scott movies and we got one Demme movie down. What did you guys think about the differences in handling the character? Do you think it was more story-based? Do you think it was director-based? What do you think about that?
I have always considered Scott's approach to this, to the character of Lecter and what he and Hopkins did in this, as almost fetishistic about Lecter, where he becomes almost an anti-hero, even though he's a monster and he does these terrible things. It's sort of
but only
like
against the really bad guys.
No, but like it's almost like the slash, but that ties right into my point. It's like the fascination with the killers in the slasher movies,
or the Punisher,
they were always
or something.
They were, but I mean, Freddy Krueger always had the witticisms, and people started going to see Freddy Krueger crack wise as he was doing horrible things to people, and where was Michael Myers going to pop up, and what was Jason going to get away with, that sort of thing. And so there's very much that vibe in here, as well as a very slasher movie sort of thing of the people are the free range rude, like you just drew, allusion to, where they rob you of pity for them. Krendler, when that happens to him, that's a horrific thing, but the movie has gone.
He was mean to Starling, so we are okay.
They've gone into overdrive. He's corrupt. He's a sexist. He's a terrible person. He's all of these sorts of things. Nobody who gets killed is like a good person. You could argue the cop, but the cop, and they don't go into this enough. The cop is corrupt, essentially. That's why he starts asking him about, the case that he was taken off of. And he's also motivated by greed to pay for his beautiful wife who has a lifestyle that he can't afford.
He knows if he turned him in and called up the FBI as he should have, then he's not getting any of that reward money because he's a cop. Like, that's his job.
Right. So it's the closest character to have our sympathy.
It always bums me out when he dies.
Well, they definitely did not do a good enough job of showing how he's correct. I mean, he gets a guy killed and makes him bleed out on the street.
It's just Chinatown,
just to get the print.
John. That's how it goes.
I know, but like he's
you're absolutely. No, he's not a good person at all. Like, but you're absolutely right. Like, there's no even like the thugs who raise the pigs, and and Verger. Like, they're all bad people. It's. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're making Lecter like an anti-hero, because like he's still Hannibal Lecter, like, but we're all kind of cheering him on in the comeuppance of these characters, that they're getting that. As far as Scott, because like this would have been right after Gladiator.
This was the next one,
and they approached him on Gladiator's set.
And I'm not sure. And then I'm assuming right after this, he shot Black Hawk Down. Like, he was very, very busy during this time period.
Apparently, the story goes, De Laurentiis approached Scott on the set of Gladiator saying, "Hey, do you want to do a Hannibal movie?" And he said, he's like, "Man, I'm doing a Roman epic right now. I'm not going to do another one." And he's like, "No, Hannibal Lecter." He's like, "Oh, Lecter? Yeah, sure."
Not Hannibal, the historical figure. But as far as Scott's take on it, I mean, the most striking thing to me, which is more of a directing style, is like we were kind of alluding to, the visual style of this. Like, there's a lot of moments, like there's moments in the FBI attack in the beginning where it gets kind of surreal, and especially in the end with the drugging scene, like where it's very surreal, and there's kind of that after image as things are in play. Those are the most striking things. But it's hard to say how it's different from, as far as his portrayal of Lecter, because so much of the first movie is Lecter in a cage. It's like pretty much all Lecter in a cage. It's a cage in the hotel and a cage at the asylum. So this is our first time seeing free range Lecter and like making his own world and moving through society. So I can't even compare, except for where the first movie was very much about the intimate moments of looking right into each other. This one I felt
quite
was
literally with Demi's
literally
cinematography. Yeah.
This one was more of the, I want to say like foreshadowing, like the way that the interactions with Lecter were constructed. Like you could totally tell as he's talking to the inspector and he's like, yeah, did you know your ancestor was hung by this window with his entrails out? I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen to this character later. Like,
Yeah.
it, and no, I wouldn't even say that's too on the nose. It's done subtly enough that you're like, we're telling as he gave the poem to his wife and it's reading about her eating his heart. I'm thinking, is he going to make her eat her husband's heart in front of him? Because, he could do it. He's Hannibal. He could actually do that. And it was honestly the most part I was not sure what was going to happen was when he actually gets captured. Because I'm like, you're kind of captured. Like, what is your end game? And it's fortunate that Starling comes to rescue him because I don't think he kind of has a way out without that.
No, he doesn't.
And he hasn't really put anything into play for her to find him. It's except for the fact that he happened to be on the phone with her and she was right there. But he's kind of resigned to that fate at that moment. He doesn't have a retort. He's just kind of there.
Yes, I do. I think that I think we were talking about this with Scott's style in the previous films we were talking about, where he has a distance from his characters. He's very objective, it seems, when he's with these films that we looked at recently, and especially, with Gladiator. He's not intimate with the characters. He's telling a story, he's putting them up there, but it's not intimate the way that Demi was. I don't feel close to these people. What makes Silence of the Lambs work so damn well is the fact that you are right there with them and they're staring at, you're looking right into their eyes and you feel like they're looking into your soul, and everything is a tight shot. Even when it's not shots like that, you feel close in with everybody. And this is much more, there are even choices. I'll be highly critical of when the two thugs come in after he's killed the police inspector and he slashes the one guy's throat, and it does that, leaving the aperture open too long or whatever they do to make it look like that. I'm like, it doesn't work here. It's not good.
It's like John Woo stepped in for half a second on the directing and was like,
no, it's more like he fell so in love with the look that he didn't realize that it didn't apply to this situation. And as a result, I think that I think it was a bad choice for him to come to this so quickly after Gladiator, because it's just, there's too much, there's not enough breathing space. He's still thinking in a larger than life way
versus like an intimate personal story.
Yeah. Than the way that would have made this work a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I thought was going to happen the first time watching it, I thought when they're having the FBI shootout, I thought it was going to be revealed that the Kingpin woman, whatever her name was, that she was going to have a doll with a tape recorder on her. Like it wasn't actually a child. And that was her playing against what the FBI assumed. Because we see that in other times, like tape recorders and sounds are used, to trick people. Obviously it was done for, logistical purposes of shooting a shootout, and they're obviously having it be a real baby in the story to push Starling even more for that scene. But I thought of that. I don't know what you think, but I think that would have been an interesting twist in the fact that she's having this crisis moment of whether or not to shoot, but in the end, there was no danger to a child. If that would have twisted the knife a little more, I don't know. It could have gone either way.
I think the way that the movie is structured, they needed a reason to suspend her, like to really show that like the brass thinks that she's a loose cannon, and the optics of it, and the optics of shooting a mother literally holding her baby
Right.
Or like having the baby strapped to her chest. And then that gives Ray Liotta's character a little bit more weight to plant the evidence so that they can kick her out. Because I think if it was just the evidence, then they wouldn't have kicked her out or suspended her, I should say. And so there needed to be something. There needed to be two things there in order to justify the suspension the way that the story is structured now.
Yeah. Well, and they even pointed out in the plot that, where Verger's like, we need to cause her pain to flush Lecter. And he's right. It works, so he knows Lecter. He's obsessed by Lecter. Clarice is not, but
right.
His whole character is around that.
And again, it gets to, it's definitely a problem with the film. I haven't read the book in long enough, but I think it's also a problem with the book where what it should really be to build off of, some of the ideas that you threw out there, Tristan, as well, is if you are going to have it be Starling, you should have Starling chasing Verger and Verger's shadow and chasing the corruption. And the reason she gets flushed out is because she steps on the wrong toes. We're all familiar with this. The person asks the wrong question, says the wrong thing in a committee meeting. Okay, you're suspended. You're out. Can't, you're suspended with pay, whatever. We'll get back to this, but you
and then
just
Hannibal's
pissed off the wrong people.
actually doing the justice that's outside the law that she wished she could do, or that she's incapable of following through on.
Well, I mean, you could see it building to a head a lot easier that way, because instead of having Starling just be a character that things happen to in this movie, who always seems like two steps behind people.
That is very much this movie.
Have her going after Verger and have somebody be able to turn it around and say, it's your obsession with Lecter that's driving you, accusing our esteemed benefactor, Mason Verger, who's done so much for the Bureau, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And she does get pissed and obsessed and going after him. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That would be interesting.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, because Starling's smart. Like, she goes to that meeting with him. Her weird vibes have got to be going off the scale, because that was a very peculiar meeting. Like, this guy is shady as all get out.
Right. And
she would have known about him if she was obsessed with Lecter, because she knows all of his old victims. He's one of the few victims that lived. Like, that, of course, puts him on her radar.
Well, there's, Verger is even more reprehensible in the book than he is in the movie.
And they alluded to that a little bit.
Very little. Yeah.
What they alluded to is only a piece of what he it's awful. It's just awful, awful, awful. The whole point being that Starling realizes everybody sucks. That's why she breaks in the book, basically, is she realizes everybody sucks, and at least Lecter has a code,
and
that he lives by.
Honest about it. Like, he knows he's a monster, but he doesn't lie. He's very upfront about what he does.
Well, it's the whole free range rude thing. Is he has this code. If you're nice to me, okay, we're not going to have a problem. But if you're not, then we will. Which, of course, the flautist that he
I was just about to say, I was just like, don't be poor at your job.
Yeah, right. He's the worst boss you could possibly have. But I got to ask, though, because we talked about story structure in different ways we could go and everything like that. A guy that I heap a lot of praise on, Pietro Scalia, is the editor here. And there are moments where I think there's some really strong work with the way things flow. And there are moments where I think it doesn't work as well as it should. So I just want to put that out there. I think the editing is fine, but it's missing. It has this weird ebb and flow to the movie where it seems to accelerate and then slow down to like a crawl at certain points. And it seems like it never finds its pace. Am I off base with that, or do you guys agree?
And it's hard because we've kind of turned this movie inside out and looked at it with different actors and different plots and different focuses and different lead characters. I have less memory, even though I just watched it yesterday. I have less memory of the editing and more memory of like the cinematography and those moments that kind of shine through. Not that the editing is nothing to sneeze at, but it doesn't, I don't know. I don't feel particularly struck by it. It's an edit that supports the way these characters are laid out with a lot of time on Hannibal. I think establishing enough. I mean, I know I say edit. Yeah, this is mostly just plot I'm describing, but we get a lot of time with the inspector, enough to understand who he is. He's not just a throwaway junkie in the alley. He is an actual character that we're supposed to connect with, at least on a moment before he dies. But yeah, I don't necessarily feel like any moment ground to a particular halt, except for, and again, this may not be editing as it is plot. I do agree, with it feels like when Hannibal is captured, I'm kind of like, the answer is, and then Clarice saves him. And it feels kind of like, that feels like luck happening in a plot, like, which this is not the kind of plot that has luck in it. This is the kind of plot where Hannibal had, he knew those people were chasing him. So why did he have nothing? Like, what was his end game with leading Clarice out and about before he got captured? Like, what? I don't know where it was leading. It was a weird part.
Well, I'm referring more to, like, I think that the strongest section of the film is when he's in Italy. Yes, I think that it's tightly paced. I think that it's focused. I think that the way that it cuts back and forth between things is really well done. I think that the guy stalking Lecter and then getting stabbed, like that's worked out really well. And then it just seems to lose its way, even in terms of that pacing of it just hits these points where it's suddenly unwieldy. And, talk about the ending, like when she's driving off and then she sees the van driving off and it's misty in the woods and everything. I'm like, what exactly is happening here? Like the visual language gets all sort of messy, I think. And I think that the way that the action is cut in DC it's just messy. I remember seeing it in the movie theater and just saying, wait, what's happening? Like, where's the car right now? Sort of thing. And I don't, that it's moments like that. And by the way, if you live in DC, you don't say Massachusetts Avenue, you say Mass Ave. So I'll just throw that out there too.
Also, it was super weird to see Lecter get captured. It felt like I was watching a different movie or a different character when I saw that happen, because we're so used to seeing him
one step ahead.
He's the smarter one, because like Anthony Hopkins is not, like a physically impressive
not a physical man. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a physical specimen that, like, he's not like the Jack Reacher in the books, it's his intelligence that you should be freaking terrified of, his ferocity. When you see him get, taken down by a bunch of pig farmers, like it undercuts the character and it undercuts the moment.
Yeah, I agree. That's the hardest part for me. What I keep saying is, like, I kept expecting it to be like, well, but I had also put this into play for this exact, like I kept the other waiting for the shoe to drop for him to be like, I knew there was a chance that your guys would capture me, so I put this into play, and here's whatever that happens. But no, I'm like, you're pretty much done. Like you were moments from being eaten by pigs. Like,
and I don't know. And was Krendler just sitting there that whole time for waiting to be drugged up and stuff? Like there's this whole thing of, like, I don't know. I just think it gets messy, because, like, just in the fact that I just recently watched it and I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of things.
No, he doesn't drug Krendler until after he's escaped.
Okay.
With Stark.
Right. But it's still one of those things where
taken the objects and planned and taken them to his house.
But
or something.
But what I'm saying is, like, the fact that I'm having trouble recalling that exact sequence so recently after watching it.
Yeah.
I tend to be able to recall, like, it's just so messy is all.
All right. Well, any other loose points we want to chat on before we give our ratings? Any other pages of the book we wanted to speak
What did you
on?
guys think of the music and how it was used and how different it was
the music.
from the first one? From Silence of the Silence of the Lambs, I should say.
It was fine. It wasn't terrific. I think it was understated enough that it was effective, but then whenever the opera music came in or when they were at the opera, it was like this jarring difference in it. Like it didn't seem to flow as well as I think it should have.
And that opera is reused in Kingdom of Heaven, which is so strange for Ridley Scott to do that.
Yeah, I think the music was not, again, it doesn't feel super memorable to me. The opera scene, though, like, I think I read that one of the critics at the time were saying, I was with you until the opera scene, and Lecter turns around and makes eye contact with him, and now it's a vampire movie. And I'm like, you're not kind of wrong, because that is a very, like, why is he looking at him, and why is he acting like he knows something? It's like, we're at that moment in the plot, we're right on the edge of the detective putting his plan into play, but I'm like, Lecter's not omniscient. Like, he doesn't know everything. Like, yeah, he's already got this guy kind of on a magnifying glass, but he's acting like he's 3 steps ahead. I'm like, he could be 1 step ahead, but that's too many steps.
That may sound pedantic to some, but I think that's perfectly put.
3 steps, but should have been 1 step. Yeah.
Better to have Lecter surprise them when they're, having the hors d'oeuvres and the champagne afterward, where it's like, oh, what did you think? Is, oh, I thought it was wonderful. And then Lecter shows up
without
like,
the eye contact.
Doctor.
We don't see the eye contact.
You're here.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Or the detective sees that Lecter is there, but Lecter does not see that the detective is there. And then all of a sudden he seeks him out in the after party.
Right.
Yeah, that would have flown better.
That easily could have been excised and executed much better.
I mean, it's almost a jump scare. Like, it's not a jump scare, but it's it's like he turns and looks right at him like he knew he was being watched. And I'm like, no,
it's a cheap thrill.
You have no way of knowing.
And the thing about that, I think, is one of the, like, a microcosm of what's wrong with the movie. We all know that Hannibal is going to kill this guy. We all know that he's going to kill the inspector.
It's being telegraphed like crazy.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that, like, we know it's going to happen as an audience member because of the movie that we're watching. Hannibal is the titular character. Okay, we get it. This guy is not going to, the inspector's not going to win. But the ham-fisted portrayal of how hard he's going to die. Like, when we know from an early on, because of how Hannibal is broadcasting it to the audience, that he's like, he might as well have looked at the camera and said, I'm going to kill him so hard. You guys don't even know. And then we go back to the scene like that. Yeah. We were a step away from that. And I feel like that's kind of the problem with this.
Yeah. Or like a similar scene, which obviously they went in a different direction with him trying to get the fingerprint. I was expecting, when they're taking the cases out and we see him just as it was shot, but then we get one extra shot where Hannibal goes back up to his office and sees that the cigar is gone. And he knows, okay, there's only one reason that this guy would take, like, the fact that the cigar is missing is enough evidence in his mind to connect that this man is now hunting him. But obviously they went a different direction with the bracelet and stuff like that. But I think that would have been an interesting moment of him walking up. We see him look at the cigar tray and then move on. And we know, he's on the scent. He's on the hunt now.
I will also say, just because you mentioned the cigar, for somebody like Lecter, who is so fixated on olfactory and taste, smoking is the last thing you would do.
True.
I'm dead serious. Like, even a cigar, like, people love to romanticize cigars. I've had one in the past. I freely admit, I used to be a full-on smoker too in the past. It kills your sense of smell and your taste buds. Absolutely slaughters them. And a guy who is fanatical about taste, that's right out. That's just not going to happen.
So maybe it should have been a tiny cappuccino that he sips
right.
and he places.
I'm sure that somebody in the audience is like, oh, well, that's not true. Cigars are this. No, it's the truth. You stay away from burning tobacco. So there you go.
Well, John, being the resident expert in all things of 2001 first-time viewings, what would you rank how many hanging good guys? Question? No, not good guys. How many hanging inspectors would you rank Hannibal the second time we see this character?
In all honesty, I was coming into this a little higher than this, but I'm going to be completely honest that
we've kind of ripped it up a little bit.
we came down hard on this.
Even though we did come down so hard, that Italy sequence does work pretty darn well. And there are aspects of it that I do enjoy still. So this might still be a little generous, but I'm going to come in at 2.5.
Well, if 2.5 is generous, Tristan, what do we get? What would you rank this as? Another Scott film, another entry into Hannibal? You having seen all of the Hannibal pieces, so just focusing on the two we've watched, though.
Man, I with John saying that 2.5 is generous, I thought I was being generous, but apparently I'm just giving it away. Like I think I'm gonna I'm gonna hold fast to my rating, even though we destroyed it. Because when I first saw it, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I thought it was a garbage film, and I kept thinking, I was just like, oh man, of course you're gonna make Red Dragon with Ed Norton as an apology for what Scott did with Hannibal. Like that's how I referred to it as a lot of the times when I started recommending Red Dragon to people. I was like, oh, this totally makes up for the abomination that was Hannibal by Ridley Scott. But then when I watched it later,
0 stars.
But then when I watched it later in life, I was kind of like, oh, I was too hard on this. You know, like it's not great. It may not even be a great Hannibal Lecter story, but I think there's a lot of elements that do work if you take out the sequel portion of it and kind of rewrite some things. And
that's true.
You know what? I'm in mid-sentence. I'm changing it from a 3 to a 2.5.
Oh, 2.5.
2.5 gigantic pigs.
Well, yeah, it's, again, like we've said before, like we kind of ripped into this movie. I think it's kind of being consistent on, we're not saying it's a terrible movie. And we all think Anthony Hopkins did an amazing job in his role because
okie dokie. When he said that, I lost it.
Yeah, I know. He's like, okie dokie. And I'm just like, you're so nonchalant about being ready to disembowel someone and shove them out a window. But that is what I would expect you to say. Oh, man. It's times like this that make me wish I did half stars, but I'm not going to break precedent yet. Looking back at some other low ranking scores. No, I'm going to give this a 3. It's like you said, Italy is the strongest scene. Gary Oldman is a tour de force role, and Hannibal. And even though recasts like Julianne Moore, I think it's more against the fact that her character becomes not a main character. And a lot of this, she is not the protagonist of this story, which maybe we shouldn't have expected from the beginning, because heck, this movie's called Hannibal, not The Silence of the Lambs. So part two. So I'm going to give this a 3, 3 out of 5.
Yeah. If I didn't give half ratings, I would have given this a 3. I would not have given it a 2.
Yeah, I can't give it a 2. That's
I would have rounded up on the half. I wouldn't have gone down to a 2. I would have gone up to a 3 for sure.
All right. Well, You can check out this and many other great podcasts here on the Nerd Party Network. Go to thenerdparty.com and check all of that out. But next week, we're going to be continuing our look into the character of Hannibal Lecter with 2002's Red Dragon. Some would say on this podcast, making up for the terribleness that is Hannibal, but we will see if that is true here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.